Okay, so before we bring this into Illustrator, the problem with Illustrator, unlike drafting programs, is that it doesn't really have a concept of scale. So it's up to you to kind of deal with scale in Rhino, or if you want AutoCAD, if you like that, or whatever drafting program. But let's look at how you might do that. And first, let's think about what that means, right? So let's say you want to do a drawing at 1/2 inch equals a foot. So inches, right? 1/2 inch equals 1 foot, right? So another way of expressing that would be, right, 1 foot, 1/2 inch equals 12 inches, right? So if 1/2 inch equals 12 inches, right, you can understand the kind of scale factor of, the new thing divided by the original thing of 24, which means if you scale this down by 1/24, it'll be scaled to 1/2 inch equals a foot. All right. So right now, these kind of make 2D lines are all in the sort of world scale, right? If I say distance, right, and I measure that, right, 60 inches. Right? But if I select all of this and I say scale, 1 divided by 24, right? Now, right, that's 2.5 inches, whatever, that's 10 inches, right? And my scale factor is, is 24, so 5 inches equals 12. Is this going to work? If I say, 60 inches, never mind. But trust me, this is now at 1/2 inch scale. All right, and let's say I'm going to put it on, let's make a sheet size. We call that sheet. And let's say R18, 18, right? An 18 by 18 inch sheet. Select those things, copied them. Right. It's okay that that's off our sheet, because at the end of the day, I'm going to want to get rid of it anyway, but it's just there for my own reference. Right. Now, to make life a little bit easier, I am just going to take all this stuff and I'm going to move it over to be at 0, 0. You'll see why in a second. Let me hit save. All right. So now these drawings, which exist on as lines in Rhino, I'm going to select them and I'm going to say export, and I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to change this to type Illustrator. Where is it? Adobe Illustrator. We'll call it Demo Drawing 2009-13. I'm going to say save, and I'm going to say preserve model scale. 1 inch equals 1 point. Keep it at RGB. say OK. Now I'm going to open up Illustrator. You're not allowed to make fun of me because I'm still using CS5. Your Illustrator will probably look different, but it's all going to be the same stuff. All right, so I'm going to open up our thing here. No. Because that's 18 pixels by 18 pixels. Okay, oops. Why did that happen? Let's try that again. Export. The same name. Yes. Let's make it. 1 inch equals 1 inch. There we go. Now let's open it up. Open. Demo drawing. All right. So if I click on that, right, we can at least go and we set our units. Oh, where is that again? Preferences, units, general, inches. Okay. All right, we can see it's 18 by 18, which is perfect. All right, we can change our artboard. So we have 2. Just snap there. All right, now we have two artboards set up. And you can see what's nice over here is that all our layers have been preserved. The first thing I'm going to do is do a select all and change everything to just have a black stroke color. Here's my swatches. You can say open swatch library. Where's the default RGB? Default swatches, basic RGB. There we go. All right. Now all my lines are black. And first thing here, right? These are our section lines. Actually, before we make them everything all black, all right? The question is now, right, what's the line weight, stroke? So I like to set my stroke weights to be in millimeters. Why? Why is because I'm old enough to remember, but young enough to never really have used in an office technical pens. And so when I was taught line weights, I was taught them basically as a kind of reference to the standard technical pen line weights, which are right here, and I'll put this on the Miro. So I'm going to set everything to 0.10 millimeters. All right, this is my lightest line weight. And now what I'm going to do, click that little thing there, is that selects all of the things on my section layer. All right, I'm going to set section to be 0.36. All right. So you can see now that you know what we're starting to have is we're starting to have a heavier line weight where the you know where the section is cut. Now, right, if you wanted to, you could start to poche the section. Right. So remember that. Actually, are all of these lines in front of the section or behind it? Let's look. I'll turn this. right? All those lines are behind the section. So at very least, um, we need to hide them. But actually, I think what is the reason that we're seeing them is that we have, no, never mind. So one way of doing that, right, is to just copy the layer, put it underneath, select everything on here, and give it a fill color. You could give it a white fill color. And we want to make sure that these layers are actually on top. Right. You could have just done this on one layer, but I like to be able to actually control the line weight and the poche independently sometimes. So another thing you could do, right, is you could actually fill in. You could actually poche the section, right? You could make it, a light gray. So you can see now what's happening is we're representing the part that's being cut through with this gray tone. Right. One of the layers you'll see here that should give you, it should give you silhouette curves. Huh. It has it. Okay. So no worries. Let's draw them. All right. I'm going to lock all this because your heaviest line weight, right, should be your section cut. But your next heaviest line weight should be where your the thing that you're drawing meets the air. So I'm going to call that silhouette. All right. And I'm just going to click the pen tool, and I'm going to set this to be 0.25, and I'm just going to draw it. Now you can see that I'm getting this weird gray line, or gray fill, and that's because I didn't turn that fill off, right? If I turn that off, there you go. All right, so now I've got my heaviest line weight on the part that's cut through. I've got my next heaviest line weight where where my space sort of meets the air. Right. The nice thing is for my plan here, that's pretty easy to draw. Oops. All right, there's my silhouette. And that, I don't know what happened, but my screen just went dark. Please bear with me. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully that didn't mess up the recording. All right. So the next thing you may wish to do is you may wish to have, let's lock that, and let's celebrate by saving. So I'm just going to rename this right on top of the old one. Save. Okay. All right. So one thing I want to do is let's put the references on their own layer. And you might say, well, why do I even need them at this point? I don't want them in the drawing. And that would be a good point. But if you have them in the drawing here, the nice thing is if you go back to Rhino and you export more stuff, so I'm going to hit, Control X, and I'm going to make sure I'm on this, that's my puppy. I'm going to make sure I'm on this layer and hit Control F, which pastes them into place, but pastes them on the new layer. Right? The nice thing about keeping them around is I can use them still to snap to and know that I can position things into the drawing in exactly the right place. That said, I'm going to turn this off. Right? The other thing I want to do is I'm now going to move this. Oops. I want to move the bounds of my box here to kind of center my plan on it. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to just 18, 18. All right, we'll call that good enough for now. I'm going to move that actually to the ref box layer. That's not really centered, but you would center it. Right, so the next lines that you may wish to change, right, is you have places where there's a change in elevation, right? So you could simply just start to select these lines. And change their circuit, like to point, I like 0.18. You could decide that you want to, start to delineate some of these areas with gray tones that speak to their relative heights, for example. There are a couple ways of doing that. One of the easiest things is to do live paint. You can say make, and then you can use the where is it? I always lose it. Right. I think is that one my lowest? My paint bucket. All right, let's look again. I'm going to turn the right, like that's the lowest one, and then it steps up here. So maybe these two are the same. And then let's maybe go a little bit darker, and a little bit darker. Right, we could then think, then if we do that, it might make sense to make our to make our section, our poche totally black. So let's live paint. Oops. Live paint. Expand. All right. Or maybe we make it a color. you know, right now these are looking fairly abstract because they're not very complex spaces. You know, what might help would be to have a scale figure, you know, which you could add very easily. You know, if you just import it into Illustrator. You know, there's a lot more that can be done here graphically. By this point, we've probably discussed that in class. But what I just want to be really, really clear about is the process, right? And the workflow. And you know, we were very careful with our units, which allowed us to go from Rhino into Illustrator and maintain scale. And now that we have each of these, right, probably the best way to export them, right, is to go to export and export them as something like a PNG, for example. Say use artboards, and maybe let's just do first artboard, and let's call this Plan 2009-13. Save, and we could do that at screen resolution because it's actually quite large. And you can see it's clipping it to the artboard and say OK. Yeah, and once we do that, right, we have something that has line weight, that has some tone, and that is, you know, is ready to go into Miro. In the next video, I'll look at how we could bring this from Rhino into hubs, which is going to entail also being careful with our units. But I think this is probably enough for now.